You are mute.
Buddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One, the Noble Dhamma Doctrine, and the Noble Mahasangha, the disciples of the Buddha. Hello, dear Dhamma friends. Welcome to week number 31 of our special Dhamma Talk series with Dhamma USA. I believe this effort by Dhamma USA is going to broaden the horizon of Dhamma knowledge among our community. We are so very delighted to have Professor De Souza Oliveira, and I'm confident we will learn much from her vast Dhamma knowledge. Please join us every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, 6:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time, through the Dhamma USA social media network with some renowned scholars and experts in different fields to learn more about current and modern topics in Buddhism and life in general. Kindly post your questions in the comment sections of our YouTube channel so that we can answer them at the end of the talk. So first, I would like to give some background information about Professor De Souza Oliveira. She is an associate professor in the Department of Studies at the Justice of Montclair State University in New Jersey. She teaches courses in criminology, victimology, ethics and justice, mindfulness in criminal and social justice, perspectives on justice, criminal analysis, and crime mapping, as well as many other courses in the field of policing and crime prevention in the US and other developing countries. She had obtained her master's degree in sociology from the Federal University in Minas Gerais State, Brazil. She has also received her master's and PhD in criminology and criminal justice from Rutgers University in New Jersey. She is also a certified meditation instructor in neurosculpting meditation from the Neurosculpting Institute in Colorado, and she had also obtained certification in Vipassana meditation from Mindfulness Meditation Teacher Program, hosted by Tara Brach and Jack Cornfield. You can find her today frequenting Empty Cloud Monastery to learn Theravada Buddhism and Pali studies, as well as just to meditate with our Bhante Sudasso Ayasoma. Just to give you a background in terms of Dr. De Souza Oliveira's research agenda, she studies homicides, drug markets, public transport crime, victimization, and policing. She has published in a variety of national and international peer-reviewed journals. So she's here today to share some wisdom with us. So if you're looking for a way to keep your mind focused and your spirits high, then this lecture is for you. So without further ado, let me invite Professor De Souza Oliveira to start her Dhamma sharing from meditation cushion to social and criminal justice. Please pay your attention to achieve maximum benefit from today. Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your introduction. Thank you very much. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Bhante, Venerable Bhante, Dr. Sumita, to invite me for this talk, participate, and to have this conversation with you today. And thank you for Dhamma USA, and thank you for all of you who are here and to have this conversation with me. So let's start. I wanted to start just saying two quotes, just reading two quotes here to inspire myself and inspire you about the topic of tonight, that it's about my own experience from meditation cushion to social and criminal justice. So let's start. So all happiness in the world comes from wishing happiness for others. All suffering in the world comes from the desire to have happiness only for oneself. This is a quote from Sandideva. And the second quote that I would like to share with you, it's from Thich Nhat Hanh. And he says, there is a lot that needs to be done in society. Work against war, social injustice, and so on. But first, we have to come back to our own territory and make sure that peace and harmony are reigning there. Until we do that, we cannot do anything for society. Let us begin immediately. So I really, really like these two quotes because I think they're very connected when we talk about this challenging topic of social and criminal justice and how to bring happiness and reduce suffering in the world. That's how I'm connected to meditation, mindfulness, and the Buddhism teachings, the Dhamma teachings. So, and my talk, I would like to have more conversation with you, with all of you. And of course, I hope we can have some Q&A session at the end. But I would like to start just giving you, talking a little bit about my own experience, how how my soul, right, was connected to the Buddhism teachings, to Dhamma teachings. And also how I'm trying to apply all these teachings to my students at the university level, as I'm teaching courses in the field of social and criminal justice. And at the end, to have a reflection with you about how we envision a world with more peace, less violence, more equanimity, and more justice. So let's begin. So my own experience, right? So I was, for many, many years in my life, I had so much fear. I was blocked by fear. I was blocked by the sense of unworthy and sadness and a lot of loneliness. And I couldn't really understand why, because at the same time, I accomplished so many things in my life. I accomplished everything. That's like I could say to you, I could say that my dreams came true. Of course, there are many things to accomplish yet, but right, like from my 20s to my 50s, I said, wow, right? I said, wow, I got it. So, and then I felt like there wasn't something wrong with me, right? I was not happy. So what was going on with myself? And I couldn't really understand this. And I was always, and I had this feeling, right, that my monkey mind, this concept of Buddha, was there all the time. My inner critic was very on the top of everything. I was completing tasks, right? Doing everything, completing all the tasks with that energy, right? That would be accepted by the external world, with that with that drive that of external approval. So, and I thought that this would bring me happiness, and that was completely wrong, right? So I went through so many struggles. I went through, as like you, too many problems in life, too many challenges in life, like you. And finally, the good part of that is that there was a very positive thing about all this struggle and all this suffering, because I couldn't understand the transitoriety of life, the impermanence of life. I didn't have these concepts, right? So until I founded Buddhism, right? So I started doing meditation. I started like learning more about meditation because I was teaching classes in policing. I could connect to the suffering of police officers. I could connect to this division in our society between the police and communities, right? Impoverished people. I could connect it to all these problems of racism and social injustice and poverty. I'm from Brazil. I forgot to tell you, I'm from Brazil. So I know what its suffering is, right? So as I started more talking about this in my classes, I felt the need to go more in depth, to have really experience or practicing of mindfulness and meditation, of self-awareness. And I was connected to Buddhism because I was this idea that this experience of struggles has a positive impact in my life because I never stopped to looking for something more profound, something that could give me a sense of meaning to my life, to worth to my life and all individuals' life. All right, so it was interesting that I didn't have, and I think this is important to mention here, that I didn't have trust, right? I didn't have trust, even though I was accomplishing many things, achieving many things. I felt stressed and anxious all my career, in all my life. So, but I knew that there was something good in me, right? Some kind of perseverance and dedication that was good. And as I said before, I never stopped looking for something more profound in my life. I want to find this. So someone told me, a mentor in my meditation teacher program told me about the Empty Cloud Monastery. In 2000, was during the COVID epidemic. When the Empty Cloud Monastery opened the doors, they have a walking meditation with Bhante Sadaso. So I was there. I just appeared there. And I remember it was such a great experience because I felt like that my soul was washed, right? Was washed with all these teachings, this profound teaching that was saying, right? That assumes, that the Buddhism assumes that everyone has value. Everyone has the human condition of compassion. Everyone has a human condition of humility. And I said, wow, and equanimity, these are qualities, these are inner qualities I'm sorry for that. I forgot to turn off my cell phone. That we all have. And it is idea, right, of open our heart. And what is the heart? And here there is a poem that says, what is the heart? Asks the poet Echo. Is the breeze there in the mountain pine? Any moment we become truly present. The sacredness of life in every tree and bush and stone, and the dazzle of someone's eyes, in the footsteps and the crunch of the leaves under your feet. Life becomes miraculous. So my life becomes miraculous when I realize and I started having more self-awareness of my heart, right? Of self-compassion and compassion to others. And here I remember talking with Samanera Matico, because he was the one who opened the door. The first person that I saw at the monastery after Bhante Sadaso in the West Orange Forest when I did the walking meditation. So, but my first time when I went to Empty Cloud Monastery, the door was opened by Samanera Matico, that today he has ordinated, he's a Bhante, and I have so much care about him. He's such a kind person. So he was the one who was talking with me who first talked with me about self-compassion. The importance of cultivating this basic condition to feel and to connect to the suffering of others and ourselves, and to do something about it. We can't do everything, right? But at least we can send prayers, right? If someone is dying, if someone is suffering, like my mother, she has been in bed for 3 years, and she has such a strong spirit, right? So I can't, she has everything, all the cares that she needs, but we cannot stop, right? Her transition to next step on her spiritual growth. But we can at least I can at least send prayers, right? We can at least, as I learned at the empty cloud monastery, Dhamma teachings, right? And Bhante Sumita too, with him, we can wish that the person and ourselves do not suffer. We can wish that the person and ourselves be happy. We can wish healthy. We can wish safe. And we can wish that the other person and ourselves be in peace. So my path was very, very, very important for me as I became more and more aware of the connection between compassion and humility. We don't know everything. We don't have control of everything. And this was not for me just abstract ideas. This is something that I saw, that I witnessed in the behavior of monks at the Empty Cloud Monastery. I was so touched by their humility, their learning, their voice, their care, their compassion. They're open to everyone. So there is a kind, and they're very knowledgeable, right? So many years studying the monastic life that it's so hard, so challenging, right? For us, lay people, who wants to be, right? So hard. And they keep there with that humility. So compassion and humility. Qualities that we completely forgot, most of us, in our modern society, which is so competitive, which make us to feel so proud, to have so much pride in vain and feel so superior to other people when accomplish something. I know this, right? Now I know the Dhamma teaching, so I'm superior, I'm more advanced. So much comparison, so much division, right? But monks, the Dhamma teachings bring us to the earth, to the reality, right? That we don't know anything, right? We don't know everything. We don't have control. We don't have control. So, so this was very, very, very important for me. So the monk's heart seems to be so tender, and with their mind so focused, right, and concentrated, which reflects on myself a sense of integrity and faith. This was very good. So I'm talking with you not from, I'm talking about my experience, not from sutta teachings, right? Not from theories. I'm talking about what I have learned as I'm becoming more familiar with everyday life of monks in the monastery. As they opened the doors for me, they opened the heart for me, and I entered this path. When I was entered this, I was also come back home. I was come back to my heart, right? Yeah. And this what happened with me, with so much gratitude, And I said to myself, this cannot be only my experience, right? Compassion means to have action, to do something about it. And as I was developing or I was learning things, I want my students to learn too. I didn't want this knowledge to be, this experience to be only my experience, because I don't see my students separated from me, from myself. I see my students as human beings, right? That's how I connected to each one of them. I love my students, right? Every semester, new students, and I see as a professor the difficulty that they have, right, to unblock their lack of self-worth, the lack of self-awareness that blocks them on the process of learning. So I wanted to teach them something more, something that could give them back the awareness, the self-awareness of their own potential as individuals, as human beings, their own value. So I started continue to practice my practice, right? Going to the empty cloud monastery. Sometimes I couldn't go, but I was practicing at home, follow monkeys on live, right? On the social media, right? Reading. I have so many books now that I love my books, right? Trying to learn with patience, because some days it's just like difficult, right? But I'm trying. I try to have patience. I'm trying to have commitment. I'm trying to be humble. I'm trying to quiet my mind, because it's not only to myself, but also to my students. So this spring, I this year, right, in 2023, I offered a new course to my students in criminal and social justice, which is mindfulness and criminal social justice. And it was wonderful. And was such a good experience. I took them to the empty cloud monastery, and it was like, wow, right? Many of them they didn't know anything about Buddhism. So it was their first experience and was so amazing. Bhante Sadas was with them like almost 3 hours on the floor, sitting, meditating, and it was so a great experience. So, and I wanted to say here very quickly, right, what's the reasons to explain the importance of integrating mindfulness in the field, in the curriculum of social and criminal justice. First thing, this is mine, right? This is how I see. So the first thing, as the students, they learn how to use mindfulness. This could help them on their own personal and individual level, because the students will become more mindful of their own challenges, right? So they will be also aware of their own potential. They're going to work. Imagine the field of criminal justice. My students, they will work with violence, with people with mental health problems, with impoverished communities. They will deal with so much suffering in the world. So they needed to understand this first on themselves. They needed to have compassion about their own suffering. They needed to have this understanding about emotional regulation. They needed to learn how to regulate their minds, focused mind, regulate their emotions, to have self-compassion, to have compassion to others. So mindfulness meditation will help students to become aware that there is nothing wrong with them, right? This is the assumption of Buddhism. There is nothing wrong with us, right? Right? In terms of, we don't have to fix anything. We have just to show who our true nature, right? Because we have the dark and the light. So let's to be aware, be patient, and reveal our good heart, right? So there is this kind of essence of goodness and purity in every heart. And we live with the potential of a growth that can change everything in a flash, right? And we also overlook at this, right? Because you look all the time to outside instead of inside. So, and also as part of the professional field of justice, we need to be aware of this in our commitment to make our own transformation in order to help the world become a better place. And thirdly, it's a fact that mindfulness helps students be a mindful leader in the field of social and criminal justice. as they become lawyers, as they become police officers, prosecutors, judges, right? Or whatever they choose, correctional officers too. So the world needs, right, individuals who are able and skillful in order to deal with the challenges, to meditate and solve conflicts without being driven by their anger, fear, self-doubts, revenge, or rage. Instead, justice needs those are driven by compassion, discernment, wisdom, honest, empathy, that wants to create unity, of course, unity instead of division. So this is my reflection to you, and I wanted to just end this with that I separated here with a quote of one of my students. This is her reflection. Let me see if I get here. She said, this is my student, Deasia. She said, it's very important to be mindful when being this field of criminal and social justice, because you can change or affect someone's life in a matter of seconds. And just having that clear mind can impact the situation or help someone tremendously. Throughout this class, I have learned about many ways on how you could apply mindfulness into the field of social justice. From what I have realized, doing this training is tied in with having the option to know about ourselves, as well as individuals around you, as well as individuals around you that should be protected. Just by applying mindfulness, you can stay present and aware in every situation, especially when it comes to social justice, because in being able to be aware of it and willing to make a change can be effective, but you have to realize and believe that it's happening right in front of our eyes first. We have to stop pushing our thoughts and feelings away, but instead acknowledge the fact that they are there and make peace with it, so that we can be better for others and be able to fulfill their needs and be there when needed the most. So I'm not going to adjust this. There are so many things that they have wrote. And I feel very grateful for found this path, right? And to be in this path, on this path of Dhamma teachings. And I just wanted to invite you, maybe now as I'm ending my talk, right? My sharing with you. I just want you maybe, right, to close the eyes a little bit, to pay attention on your breath, on your breath, in your body. And observe how this conversation, my ideas, my experience have impacted you, or maybe not. But just feel in your body if there is anything there that was meaningful to you. And if this sharing connected to you in some way or not. And I would invite you to think about one type of injustice. Bring into your mind those who are suffering because of that injustice. Could be an act of violence. Could be poverty, people who are very poor, people who are sick, people who do not have anything to eat, children who are neglected, people who are alone and live on the streets. Put yourselves on their shoes. What do you think that these people need? You breathe in and out. You're safe. You're in peace. As you reflect on this idea, how would you approach them and help to solve their issues? What can you do for those who are in suffering, like you? You breathe in and out. And now you can open your eyes gently. Come back to this meeting again. And I want to wish you all happiness. I wish you health. I wish you a good life with no suffering, with lots of love and good health. Thank you so much. This is the end. If you wanted to, for any questions, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor De Souza Oliveira, for this profound Dhamma talk from meditation cushion to social and criminal justice.
Thank you.
I'm sure all of our Dhamma friends around the world, you're welcome, were benefited today. We can now take up your questions. And we encourage you to post your questions in simple language to the Dhamma USA YouTube channel.
Okay, there is a question there, right?
How do you connect Buddhism to social justice in practice?
Okay, thank you for the question. And yes, the first step, right, that what I'm trying to do is to help my students, to train them, right, to be more aware of Buddhism, of meditation, all these Dhamma teachings first. I cannot impose to them the Buddhism teaching because they have different religions, right? It's a class, it's so diverse. But at least I can offer them a different perspective, right? And in my own practice, right, something, and one thing more about how me trying to connect the Buddhism in social justice. Currently, I'm writing a research proposal. It's like it's already done, right? I'm going now during the summer to collect some data about mindfulness in policing. And after that, I wanted to conduct some experimental research to bring in like the Buddhism teaching to police officers and see how this teaching can impact their behavior in terms of the use of force, in terms of being connected to procedural justice, as well as in community policing. In my own practice, what I have done in order to bring Buddhism to social justice, I have a special group of people who I work with. These are survivors of cancer, a group of women. So I teach it to them, right? And also I teach it to a special group in Brazil, like I teach online classes. So I just finished 8 weeks of mindfulness based on Buddhism teachings to Brazilian community. So that's how I'm trying to connect. So, and of course, this is a very new experience for me. And I'm trying to expand more as I became more and more familiar with the Buddhism, and I can kind of have more ways to open the doors, right? To do some practical work with people who are really in need. I think did I answer your question?
I believe I think that was a pretty good answer. So to move on to the next question, what's your recommendation on Buddhist practice to help those who do not practice Buddhism?
Wow, this is a very good question, right? It's a very challenging question, yes. And I forgot to answer this question. I wanted to say something about my background, right? I'm from a very Catholic family. I was raised in Catholicism. So I'm going to answer this question based on my own experience, right? What helped me, right, to practice Buddhism, and I didn't have before any experience in Buddhism. So what I would say for those who do not practice Buddhism and how they could like be open a little bit more to Buddhism is to kind of tell them, right, about first to have the experience. They have to be open. This is a very difficult, right, question, because some people are very resistant and to Buddhism, right? There is a lot of, I'm talking about from this place, right? From knowing about Christian people, right? So there is a lot of prejudice against Buddhism for people that I know, right? Who are Catholic, who are Christians. So they don't have a very good perception about Buddhism. That's the reality for some people. So how can we bring Buddhism to them? Who's someone who never practices, who's someone who is who have a practice a different type of religion. I would start talking about mindfulness, one of the pillars of Buddhism. I would start talking about self-compassion. So all those things, like this word of mindfulness, to bring self-awareness, right? To talk about the concentration of the mind, to talk about this concept of self-compassion, that they can connect to the idea, to the teachings of Jesus Christ, right? So I think that's the way that I would approach people. That's how I teach, right? Because when I teach my mindfulness meditation course, I'm teaching to Brazilian people. Most of them, they're not Buddhists, right? And I talk about Buddha, I talk about its Dhamma teachings, right? But I talked about this teaching in a very respectful way, in a very, right? I don't impose anything, because I think the people, they have to have the experience, right? The experience of open the heart to listen, right? Without judging, for them to connect to their soul, to their heart, and then they can kind of start and be more open to Buddhism. That's I would start talking about mindfulness, the benefits of mindfulness, the benefits of the concentration of the mind, the benefits, all the like the beautiful things, right? The teachings about suffering, the suffering in the world, right? Why you suffer. So I think it's the good start. Let's talk about these basics of the Buddhism without imposing to them, right? We cannot impose to anybody.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. The fundamentals are the best because that's how you can connect even other religions.
It is. And to tell the truth, like how I connected, right? I don't know if there is any question, if I could say something more, because in Catholicism, we have this strong idea of a punishment, right? That you have to suffer in this world. So it's kind of make us like so separate from our body, our heart, right? Because it's everything, it's outside, right? Love, it's in Jesus. We depend on Jesus, right? And I think, I'm not saying that I'm not criticized, right? I think there are many things in Christianity, in Catholicism, that it's very connected to Buddhism teachings. And I heard that Jesus Christ, that he went to Asia, right, to learn things from the Buddhism too, right? So I think there is a lot of connections there. But I think it's very strong, this idea of a punishment, punish your body and to suffer in this world, right? And I think Buddhism, even though we have awareness of a cause and effect, right? Everything is cause and effect, but there is this kind of that we have self-worth already, right? Everybody, we already have self-worth. I think that's how I interpret Buddhism. So I think we start from there. And this is beautiful. If you start teaching people about this first step, right, of self-compassion, humility, right? And self-worth, everybody has self-value, right? So I think this is a good thing, a good start.
So we had a question. Thank you for that response. It was very, I think, enlightening for many of us. How did you study criminology? This was from one member from the audience, Catherine.
Okay. Okay, how did you get interested? Oh, I'm gonna tell you. I'm a sociologist. I got my master in sociology, and I'm from Brazil. So violence, it's everyday life, right? It's a topic that you see on newspaper, on social media all the time. So, and when I was a child, I was very sensitive to any type of violence, right? I was very touched by people who are suffering, people who are arrested. And I was raised in a authoritarian regime. So when I was a child and a teenager, I saw a lot of oppression. And this was very sad, right? A lot of suffering. So I went for sociology. I got my master in sociology, and my first day of criminology, because I learned criminology in my master program in social science, in sociology, and my professor, he asked the big question, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to become. He asked why some people commit a crime and others do not. So this called my attention. And I said, why only few people commit a crime? If you think about it, it's just a few people. Majority of us, right? They're good people, right? It's not that the other criminals are not good people. They break the law, right? So, but the majority of people do not. So these are the two questions that called my attention. So why some people commit a crime and why people do not commit a crime? And then I was very, very inspired about policing, because when I was in sociology, I was very impressed, right? I was impressed, let me go back here, right? I was impressed by the presence of female police officers on the street. So this called my attention. I wrote my first research paper. I didn't even finish, I didn't, at that time, I didn't have my bachelor yet, right? But it was before. And then I was very connected. I worked with a human rights office for the local government for 10 years. So I worked in favelas, right? With people who were suffering a lot. I worked with police violence. So I was very inspired by this idea of human rights and policing. And why do you have this separation between the police and human rights? Because the police represents the state, democracy, police represents human rights, right? Civil rights. So I started teaching human rights at the police academy. So I was the first person, without be a police officer, who entered the police academy to teach human rights in my hometown in Brazil. So all those things, I worked in Brazil for many, many years in this field of policing and police violence, but always trying to bring them together, instead of to separate things, right? So yes, this is my experience. I love criminology. I love to study policing. That's my passion.
Thank you for that response. Answer was pretty clear. So the next question is, what's your experience with Jack Cornfield? How was it helpful to you?
It was beautiful. So because I think because my first entrance to Buddhism was through him, right? Because at the time I didn't know about Buddhism. I didn't know Empty Cloud Monastery. They are the ones who told me about Empty Cloud Monastery. And Jack Cornfield, as a layperson, and he was training Buddhism, right, for many, many, many years, he was able to talk to us in a very, how can I say, what is the word here? He was not talking about religion, right? He was talking about the teachings without forcing us, without impose us to become a Buddhist. So this was pretty good for me that didn't know, a Catholic person, right? That didn't know a lot about Buddhism. So, and I think he's such a wise person. I have so many books about him. He's a psychologist, right? So he helped us to, in my case, right, to help me to understand more and more about my own inner world. So it was with so much compassion. I probably you know him. I don't know if you know him on the social media or have read any of his books. Yeah, was very helpful for me because through him I entered the path of Dhamma teaching without being forced to, right? Was a very kind way to kind of open my heart and open my mind and my ears, right? To listen from a very, from my own experience without imposing anything. So that's what I liked about him.
Thank you for that answer. I totally agree. I think it's a mark of a good teacher to know how to understand the mind of a student and be able to, yeah, teach in a way that they can grasp it easily, like the Buddha, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I think you
Good.
pretty much gave us a good answer to this question. Unless there's anything, how is the response from your Brazilian community to your
Ah,
work, to your teaching of Dhamma?
uh-huh. Okay. So I have some people, some Christian people. It's interesting because in this recent course that I taught, 8 weeks in mindfulness, right? I had one of my students, she's Christian. So she invited many other Christians to participate. And I have a class of 13, but I think I have 5 or 4 Christians, right? Not Catholics, but more a different. I don't know how to explain, but it's in Christianity, the religion. But they just came once, and I was trying to be very kind, right? Being very aware of this for them, the fact that they had a different religion. So, but they liked it, right? They came to hear this. This student, we invited them. She stayed until the end of the course, the 8 weeks, and she loved it, right? And the other students, they are very open. They are not very strong connected to any religion, and they stayed. But the ones that were more I don't want to say the word radical, but maybe that's more connected, right? More faithful to their own religion practice, they didn't stay. This is my experience, right? on this only one on this course. So yeah, but the other ones I have taught meditation during the COVID for 2 years every Wednesday, and I have a group of people, they stay with me. Yeah, they stay. But these are people like they're professional women. They're not. I'm not saying that the other Christians they're not professional. Let me fix that, right? Correct that. Like they're more open. People who are very faithful to their own religion, it's more difficult.
Definitely. But yeah, it's important to share your wisdom, and the right
Yeah. It's
people
important to
will
be aware,
totally
and I
come.
think that we have to be very soft with them, right? The way that we
Right.
explain things. That's why I liked Jack Cornfield. It's a lay person that knows a lot about Buddhism and the way that he teaches. So I kind of learned from him too, right? Kind of not impose, but we cannot teach. I know there are many ways how to teach meditation and mindfulness, but I don't want to forget about the roots, about Buddha, about Buddhism, about the Dhamma teachings. I think they're so important, right? Rather than to teach a secular mindfulness course, that's okay, right? To have a secular mindfulness course, everybody nowadays talk about self-regulation instead of mind meditation, right? So it's different. The words are different that they're using, right? But they're talking about Buddhism, right? We cannot forget about the tradition.
Yes, and that brings us to our next question.
There's
There's so many mindfulness-related teachings today. How do you think Buddhism is as more important or special?
I think for example, I'm doing a course, right, in flow research coaching. It's all based on neuroscience. I have my certificate in neurosculpting meditation. That's all based on neuroscience. It's okay, right? It's okay. But one thing that it's missing, because even though we learn about our brain, we learn how important is the monk mind, right? The monk's mind, how important is their heart, right? And neuroscience has proven that it's so important for our brain, right? All this practice, the Buddhism practice, it's so important, right? But the thing is, let me see, I'm going to explain this very in a very calm mind, right? What it's missing, it's understanding of our true nature. What it's missing is to use the words such as love, such as compassion, right? Everything's about the brain, everything's about self-regulation, it's about stress, anxiety, but if you understand the mindfulness just as a tool to regulate our nervous system, to regulate our emotional intelligence, it's okay. Very, very important, right? But if you miss, right, if you don't talk about the importance of all this for our humanity, humility, compassion, love, use the word of love. They teach mindfulness at corporations, organizations, CEO, politicians, all wanted to know these things, right? They wanted to self-regulate. That's good. But we needed to be touched. We needed to experience our heart, to understand that we have a fear, that we suffer, that we have things that we need to unlock, that we need to understand. And that's what it's missing. And I have been walking this, right, on these different types of mindfulness program that is more secular. And I don't like to separate mindfulness from this sacred place, from this connection that's larger than this just a science. It's not for me. I respect, but it's not for me.
So, what is your most favorite Buddhist practice?
I love the breathing meditation. I love the loving kindness meditation. I love to wish to myself. And I learned this a lot from Empty Cloud Monastery, Bhante Sumita, right? This idea of, right, wish to myself happiness, safety, health. And also one practice that I really love, that I try to practice every single day, every single moment. And then I learned it also, I heard this, right? From, I listened, Bhante J, and he said that mindfulness, it's right, it's very, very important, right? You can sit on your cushion for 4 hours, 1 hour, but if you go to the world without practicing mindfulness, what is the point, right? So the idea of pay attention in our words, in our thoughts, in our behavior, in our actions to others, in our emotions. So this is very, very important. And I want to complement to some teachings that I learned from Bhante Sumita. I was like doing the silence retreat there for a few days, right? I didn't sleep over, but I was there. And it was like very, right, Brazilian, right? Not so quiet. And then said, yeah, focus on yourself. Just don't, right? Be focused on you. So I like to practice those things, right? Always when I see that I'm very dispersed or distracted, right? I bring back home. I come back home to breathing. I love to do breathing meditation. I do this before I study, before this session here, right? I calm down a little bit. So all the time I do this, even if it's for a few minutes during the day. And also I have my practice at the end of the day that I like it. And before I go out of the bed.
Thank you for your answer. So for the next question, how can we help the younger generation who are very disturbed and distracted and isolated today?
Yeah, you have to approach them, right? You have to find a way to reach out to them, right? To try to connect, to try to understand. There are so many people in need, right? If like young kids, for example, I can talk about the young people, right? My students, they are like 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. So that's the young generation. And many of them, I don't know if there is any professor in this call here, or any teacher, but many of them, they have a lot of anxiety, right? They go through a lot. Parents, they are divorced, right? Went through divorce. They lost people. They are struggling with working and studying and paying the bills, living alone. So there are so many struggles. So I think you have to reach them right out. And that's what I try to do in a very humane way, right? Like what does it mean? It means that is to see them as they're not different from us. They are like us, right? So it's to try to talk with them in a very open with open heart and open mind. Let me explain you something here, right? That I think this is a good example. Let's see if it's connected. I just got this here, and maybe this is a good intuition. This semester in my criminology class, I gave them an essay that I have to write about a real case of a rapist. This is a very tough case, very difficult case. Okay, this was their final paper. I gave them instructions for them to write this essay. So, and one of my students, she came to me in the beginning of the class, she raised her hand one day and she said, Professor, I can't do this paper. I cannot. Because I feel so sad. I can't. And then we opened this discussion. I opened the discussion with all the students. And there are many of them that are having this struggle. Because, why? Because they feel in their body. This is so beautiful, right? It's not just a theory, right? We cannot just, that's what I wanted to say, we cannot approach students, we cannot approach the young generation trying to advise them, trying to teach them, right? Trying to impose them, but to connect to what they feel. How do they feel? Asking these questions. What do you feel? What do you feel now? Right? What are your thoughts? What are your challenges? And try to listen to them more than to try to kind of guide them, right? Like we know everything. No, let's listen to them. Let's understand them. Because each individual has their own challenges too. So I think that's how I approach my own students. I kind of see each one as one individual. And I think they engage more, right? I think it's from my experience, I think they become more open as we engage them, right? Then rather than to keep this relationship with them that we know everything and you do nothing because you're a victim or you're suffering, right? And I needed to teach you, right? No, we need to learn with you. Let's talk. Let's see what you already know and you're not aware of it. And then we can share some ideas. Yes.
Yeah, I think that was a really great answer in the sense that it's through the compassion you can really get to them. That's the only way. It's difficult to relate to someone completely, but you can have to empathize necessarily, but it's definitely to sympathize you can.
Yeah, I have another student. She had a lot of anxiety, and I didn't know, right? She was in my class, and one day she was walking the corridor, and she was just vomiting. And I said, "Oh my God!" And then I embraced her, I helped her, and she said, "Professor, I have been in hospital for 3 months." She almost failed this semester. And then I told her, oh, and then I talked about meditation, and she came to see me as an advisor, right? So, and I spoke with her, I talked with her, and she had so much suffering. She was not talking with her mother. She used to come at home, go to her own room, stay there, right? She was completely separate from her family. So she had so much suffering. And then we did this work. It's not only about my work, but at the end, she had dogs. She bought a pet. She passed on the police exam, the public service exam. So she finished school, right? So she was missing something, right? That was not, I think what we're missing in our modern society, it's this connection with ourselves, right? That the Buddhism allows us to connect, I think, in a very skillful way, in a very wise way, with a lot of compassion.
Thank you for that answer.
Oh, thank you.
So, as a professor in criminology, what is your recommendation to reduce hate crimes?
That's a big problem, right? It's a huge problem. And hate crime, right? Like there is this new in Brazil now about the soccer player Vinicius, that he has been suffering racism like 10 times. She is a football player in Spain, Real Madrid. And people like the audience in the stadium, right? For many times, like 10 times, they're calling her monkey, his monkey, as a monkey. Oh, you're a monkey, you're a monkey. That's terrible, right? Because he's black, right? So I don't want to, as a criminologist, as a researcher, I don't want to give you just a recipe how to reduce hate crime, because we need to do research, right? We need to understand more the problem, right? There are different types of hate crimes. For each type of hate crimes, there is a pattern. We need to understand the pattern to think about what we can do about it, right? What kind of strategy we can implement, right? So this I'm talking here from a researcher perspective. but from a Buddhist friend, right? And from my experience in this spiritual path, I think we need to have a very clear, a very open conversation about compassion again. We need to talk about that. We need to understand the suffering of both sides, right? Because the offender, the offensor, the person who hates, we know that this person has a lot of struggles, a lot of difficulties, a lot of trauma. And we know also the person who is receiving the hate, right, needs a lot of healing. So, and I'm thinking here one of the strategies that maybe we could do, that could be very efficient, would be restorative justice, right? Restorative justice will bring it together at the table, the offender and the victim. And the offender, the person who offends, needs to understand why he did that and what's the impact that his actions has on the victim. And the victim needs to be held, right? She needs to understand how to forgive this person. So it's all about forgiveness, right? Without the person who's offended, who caused the harm, get out of any consequence, right? Because there are consequences. But we can be responsible for our actions if you understand why we did it and what are the effects of the harm on the victim. So we need to do that, because without this realization, as the quote that I cite in the beginning of this talking here, right? Without we go inside, how can we heal the world? How can you have a better society? So I think the restorative justice would be a very good strategy, right? To start talking about how to reduce hate crimes. We have to bring people together.
Yeah, there's definitely two sides to a coin, for sure. So, so with that, we conclude today's Dhamma sharing, and we look forward to meeting you more for future Dhamma sharings in the coming weeks. So let's keep our palms together and close to our hearts and pay respect to Professor De Souza Oliveira with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you always be happy, well, happy, and healthy, Professor De Souza Oliveira, by the power of all the dana, sila, bhavana activities that we have performed during our lifetime and throughout the samsaric journey. Become one united power. May it be shared with all celestial beings. May all the wonderful celestial beings, including the Brahmas, the Devas, and all sentient beings, wherever they are, receive this merit and share this merit and be well, happy, and healthy. May all your departed ones, including your preceptors, professors, parents, and all ancestors, also receive this merit and be well, happy, and safe wherever they are. May all of us be able to live life comfortably and with good health. May all of us and all sentient beings be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana at the end of samsara. Thinking thus, close to our hearts, let us pay respects and chant sadhu for Professor De Souza Oliveira. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you. Sadhu.
Thank you again.
Thank you
again for sharing Dhamma with us today, from the meditation cushion to social and criminal justice.
Thank you.
So we'll see you all again next week at the same time. Good night and Taro and Saranai.
Good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.